Good morning. It's Monday, September 11th, and I'm actually redoing my reflection from yesterday because as I put it up, I realized that my image was blurred, but I also realized that my thoughts were blurred. So, beginning again, I want to introduce you to the Arizona Sonora Desert Museum as one of my places of connection with the Sonoran Desert, with the environment for doing my work of healing, of blessing, and of being light in the world. Yesterday morning, Bill and I had the chance to go there. And as usual, as I stood on the top step just before you go down and select your path into this wonderful, it's kind of a mix of a botanical garden that has all of the environments of this Sonoran Desert and broader region of the Southwest Arizona area, and beautiful enclosures and habitats for the animals of the area where they feel at home. So as I stand on the top step and look down at the paths into the Desert Museum, I pause and ask, what is my work today? And where shall I do it? And the answer that came through yesterday was to go over to the Labyrinth, which again has beautiful desert plants and trees growing up to provide it some privacy and to help define its shape. And I went there and was immediately at ease to sink deeply into a very slow walk along its turns and bends and folds as the labyrinth first leads you all the way in and then leads you back all the way out. I do walking a labyrinth on kind of an intuitive and experiential way. And so often I envision that as I'm walking in, I'm actually unweaving or letting something fade that is an old thought pattern, an old habit, an old perception that doesn't serve me anymore. And that as I'm coming out, I'm allowing a new pattern to take form that is going to better serve me and be more in tune with seeing the collective nature of humanity as one being. My focus yesterday was on that tangle that I get into, and I think that many of us do, of feeling like we are comparing the relative ease of our lives with that of the lives of people around us or that of people around the world. There's a very old myth that has gotten embedded in many of us that I should not be happy if somebody someplace else is suffering, if somebody else is struggling, if somebody else is having a hard time. And it ends up being that it feeds a couple dynamics. One is if I'm doing very well and I hear about somebody else who's going through a crisis, then there is a feeling of guilt that separates me off from them. I want to pull back and not look. And if I'm in one of my own dark night places of watching things fall apart in my own life, going through difficult transitions, and look outward and see that other people seem to be going through life effortlessly, then there's an envy that also separates us. So I wanted to use my time yesterday to unweave that old myth and thought process for myself as part of letting go of one bit of what holds in place my distinctions of me and others, us, them. So as I walked through this, lovely labyrinth, each time I came to a turn, I would pause and exhale and ask for all of that old form to fade. And as I walked slowly the steps to the next turn, I would think about, okay, what are the elements of this that have been so deeply connected into my cells and wired into my thinking that I still want to release, and would kind of bring those to mind and then kind of would exhale them at the next corner, and did that all the way in to the heart of the labyrinth. And then I took a few moments there in the center to say, okay, now that there's been a new space created, now that I'm no longer feeding with my mental energy these old patterns, what may want to emerge as I begin my walk back out of this labyrinth? And I still don't have a lot of language or a lot of images around this. And that's often my experience, that I'm just beginning to apprentice some whole new way of perceiving or some new set of thought forms. So they are foggy, they are elusive sometimes, and they do take more work over the course of days and weeks to have come more vivid. And I think maybe that's why I'm redoing the video, is that overnight a few things came clearer and I realized, oh, yes, let me go back and let me give just this little step further of clarity about what I'm seeing as I'm moving back out. One of the realizations that came as I was walking the stretches between the corners was that we're in a time when we are all experiencing things falling apart. Now, it's always been so. We're always going through the different losses in relationships, difficulties or challenges in our work, something not going quite right in the outside world. We go through our individual dark night of the ego transitions quite often in life, where what has worked before is breaking apart, and it has to break apart in order for something new to come into being. But we're now seeing climate change disasters, wars, the breaking apart of structures that have been solid, so that it seems like there are these huge disruptions. And what we have to understand is we're all going to experience them. So there's not an us and a them. It's not that that's going to be something that happens over there that's never going to touch me. It's that, oh, let me somehow be with the people who are going through it now, because they're going to be my teachers. And let me see what I'm led to do now in preparation so that I become more flexible, more resilient, more empowered by simply seeing those qualities in the people who are experiencing it now. If I can see that they are capable of moving through whatever this is in their lives, and that there is grace that is holding them in the midst of this crisis, and that there is this drawing together of human support and care that occurs around a disaster, then I begin to realize that those are flows that are going to be in and around all of our lives as we face these things. It brings us into, we're all in this together. And one of the other things I realized on one of those portions of the walk is coming back to this basic theme of, as I thrive, I am free to send blessing and light and love and energy into any place that people are struggling, and allow their highest being to draw that in whatever way they happen to need it at the moment, to support and sustain them. So I can give on an energetic level and know that it honors the individual, it honors the group, it honors the life form, of that time. So that was what was beginning to build as I was walking out of the labyrinth yesterday. I know it's going to come more and more clear as I keep an eye out for it in the coming days. And I'll look forward to sharing some of that in my future talks. Thank you for letting me go back and take another run at this. This is an amazing journey for me, and I appreciate your presence. I will talk to you soon.